Welcome back to some more BattleTech. Today we're going to be checking out this video about the Battle of Tukayyid. I think that's how you say that? We'll see. I've been recommended in many different ways to get into the BattleTech lore. Some people say I should just watch it in the order of the playlist, and others have other suggestions. This one is kind of way back when I got into 40k. That these were the two videos, the BattleTech 101 plus the Battle of Tukayyid, that were apparently like good entryways into the BattleTech lore for being kind of short but also very informative and stuff like that. But of course, before we get into the video, make sure to go check out the OG. Link to that is always at the top of the description. I will be pausing and commentating over it, so if you want the video in full quality, you gotta go watch the original. But alright, let's see what this is about.
Hey there folks, Tex the Black Pants Legion here. Yes, we're working on the next Tex Talks BattleTech, but this one here is going to be a special. An in-between episode. This episode is something that had to be said, and had to be said today of all...
Okay, maybe the fact that it's like an in-between episode makes this a little better to kind of just shove in randomly. Just from the name, I'm going to suspect that it's going to be some sort of epic battle. I don't know between who, but from what we learned from the Houses of the Inner Sphere, there are the clans, kind of like the space barbarians, but apparently from you guys, what you guys have said, they have better technology and more resources. So kind of, but also not really space barbarians. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's like a war between two major houses. I don't know.
Days. Those of you who know why are smiling. Those of you who don't, well, buckle up. Here comes an education. Today is not a talk about a machine. Today is a celebration. Today is May the 20th. Today, we remember the Battle of Tukayyid. May the 20th, 3052 ended a battle, and in essence, a war. In a single contest of will, manpower, supplies, and crazy, the clan invasion was stopped dead on a formerly sleepy agricultural world.
Okay. So yeah, the world's probably called Tukayyid, and this is a war against the clans. Considering the fact that they have more resources than us, then I would guess that this is probably like an extremely bloody battle where we had to fight them using guerrilla tactics. Potentially kind of like an XCOM 2, but like on a obviously planetary scale.
World that was chosen as a proxy battle site in a desperate attempt to trick the clans into stopping their war machine in its tracks by taking advantage of their stupid ways. After all.
Stupid ways? Is it, Well, from their description, and potentially because of how technologically advanced they are, maybe they're like a very prideful people, and so we kind of use that against them.
The stakes were as high as they could be. By 3052, the clans were making great conquests of the Inner Sphere, nearly annihilating Rosselhog and threatening the capital of the Draconis Combine. A threat so serious the DCMS lightened their death to all mercenary stance just a tad. It was assumed that if this war continued, the Inner Sphere would be a dominion of the clans within a few short years. The great houses, while having a numerical advantage, were struggling to defend themselves. This, for them, was a different kind of war. Their seemingly inadequate equipment and frontline combatants melted time and again in the face of clan discipline, superior training, and people bred for conflict just like this.
Okay, so yeah, they're here for war, that's all they know. And even though while we have the numbers advantage, we don't have the technological advantage, so I would assume all the battles that we fought up until this point, we've kind of just did it head on, which that's all really good tactic when the enemy has better units, but maybe we change it up here.
When it became apparent that Terra was the primary invasion objective, Comstar stepped out of the shadows and decided to act.
Terra in these kind of like sci-fi universes it's probably referring to Earth, right?
Comstar could no longer fence sit and facilitate. Comstar had to roll up its sleeves and show the clanners who was boss. Comstar, being the shifty fucks they are, decided to abuse the system. This is called asymmetrical strategic planning. In layman's terms, this is called tactical fuckery. So Comstar being Comstar and having studied their opponents in detail, they decided to bring the clans to a single point and annihilate them. In 3052, Comstar issued a batch-all.
I mean, there is a reason why Comstar kind of has a monopoly on... I think you guys said they have a monopoly on faster-than-light communication systems, as well as the fact that they are the ones who issue the central currency that people use in international trade, which, yeah, having that much power under one group is usually not good. I say usually, but it probably is never really a good idea.
Batch-all in Clanner speak is a direct challenge, a contest of wills to be won, and this was a challenge that the clans could not, without significant loss of honor, pass up. Comstar openly challenged the invading clans to the following. Fight on a chosen world, in this case Tukayyid. The clans would be invited to bring their very best. Comstar would bring theirs. Each clan would have 2 cities as objectives. If the clans could conquer and hold them, they would win. Comstar would act as...
Oh, well, there you go. You have your objectives for a potential tabletop game already. And even the different sides as well, defending and attackers.
The defenders, and would try to contest the objectives with all they had. If the clans won, Comstar would make no challenge to the clan conquest. If the clans were to lose, however, they would have to obey a 15-year truce on their honor to halt all further invasion from a delineation line set at Tukayyid.
On their honor. And we already know that they're very prideful people. I mean, it was literally just stated. They can't turn this down because then it would be dishonorable. It would be like they ran away from a fight, which is probably not going to be a part of their culture. But this is very obviously a trap. We understand that their pride and their strength is actually their weakness. Their confidence in their military tactics is what will be their downfall. Because since we're able to basically set the stage and we know exactly where we're going to be fighting, we're just going to booby trap the whole goddamn planet, right? Like, why wouldn't you? Make them pay for every single inch of soil with their blood. Yeah, I already see the signs here. This is going to be an absolute massacre. Probably on both ends, to be honest, but, like, the Innersphere probably didn't have a fighting chance until this point.
To this direct challenge, the clanners agreed. This was bargained and done. After all, how could they refuse a direct challenge from a jumped-up telecom company pretending to be the inheritors of Star League? The nerve on those bastards. As it turns out, underestimating Comstar would be about as smart as letting Michael Vick babysit your dog. Immediately, clanners began to bargain internally for the privilege of drop order, or who gets to hit the planet first and how much shit they intend to bring. This
basically who gets to die first, but they don't know that. Oof, yikes.
Was a contest in itself, bidding forces in order of battle, in order to out-honor the honorable honor for honor's sake. Honor on the side, hold the honor with extra honor. Some clanners even did almost a 3rd grade level of homework on their opposing commander, Comstar's own Anastasius Vogt. The clanners dismissed him as a paper general, someone with no military experience, leading an army of bureaucrats driving machines they couldn't understand from an era long gone.
That is a very arrogant way of looking about it. I mean, this is the guy that Comstar picked. I guess they just don't really understand Comstar as a whole in the first place, so, yeah, true. Because, yeah, it's just an upstart phone company, right? It's nothing more than that. Yeah.
The clanners thought he was nothing more than a pretender, a joke, a noble in the guise of a soldier. He was to them a non-threat, leading...
Okay, I'll be honest with you. If I walked down the street and I saw this guy walking towards me, even I'd be spooked. You can clearly see that he's been through many, many battles. This is not some upstart noble. You don't live a life of luxury and look like this, okay?
An army of children, pretending at war. The clans had brought their best and brightest. To answer a call of this extraordinary magnitude, they fielded their best commanders and most elite battle-hardened soldiers. They brought forward their best mechs and equipment from the invasion corridors. They would take to this field of battle with their cons leading from the front. This was their greatest challenge of the era. This was their finest hour. They realized this would be a glorious battle sung for generations, a tipping...
It will be. For the other side. Bro, investing that many resources into a singular battle on an enemy's home turf that they know that you're coming into is... Wait, pause? But yeah, like, that 15 years of peace is probably going to be useful to you because you're going to need to, I don't know, retrain all those soldiers and rebuild all the tech that you're about to lose here. So many promising commanders are gonna die. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the way they think about the inner sphere completely changes. Or maybe not even the inner sphere as a whole, just like Comstar.
Point in their history. Oh, how right they were. You have to understand, this was what clanners had wanted, a triumph of their way of life, their society, their ethos versus the barbarians they intended to conquer. Above all, honor was on the line. It was a challenge to everything they stood for, and defeat seemed impossible. Finally, the Inner Sphere had the grit to actually obey their correct rules of combat, and issue a challenge to determine this all in a reasonable manner to a clanner. Finally, the Inner Sphere would play by their rules, but...
Can I say that the way Tex reads this is really, really epic, and the way that I don't know the correct terminology here in English, like accentuates particular words to suggest a certain subtext behind them. He's not just reading, right? You can tell that there's more behind it, and especially because he also tells these stories from an in-universe perspective. It helps give even more context to how people feel and think about certain aspects of their universe. I also want to add that time and time again in history, there have been moments where the tides of battle have changed simply because the enemy became too confident in their own victory. So I guess even now we still haven't learned, and far into the future you still haven't learned, and we're still making the same mistakes. Aren't humans so great? We're such humans.
As it turns out, where the clan was concerned with honor and protocol, Comstar was concerned with, well, winning.
Yeah.
On the defense, Comstar brought everything they had. Protocols of ancient technologies were unsealed, opened, and emptied, and pressed into the hands of untested, but well-trained and semi-green pilots. Some of these pilots took to the field in weapons that had in many cases not been used in 300 years.
So are we in a situation where there was a technological boom, but a lot of that has kind of been lost because of the wars that we've been waging? And so all this ancient technology becomes extremely valuable because we don't know how to recreate it. A weapon that we haven't fired in 300 years that is super, super powerful sounds like something that you should be using, but because you don't understand it, then I guess that's probably why it's sealed away, and it's too valuable to lose on the front line. But like, in this kind of situation, you're already backed into a corner, so you might as well. It's do or die today, so just don't underestimate a cornered beast, because yeah, we're going to see a lot of bloodshed here.
For this titanic conquest, Comstar emptied every garrison in the Inner Sphere except Terra.
I mean, as they should.
Comstar dedicated 12 entire armies to the field of battle, and was prepared to lose them all to save Terra alone. And while the Com Guards were an admittedly untested force of green pilots, they had excellent training and knew the stakes. If they could win just this once, they would stop the invasion. Because clanners didn't know how to engage in takesies-backsies with any level of aptitude and just invade anyways if they lost. But if Comstar lost and mangled the clan war machine, they could buy time for reinforcements from the great houses. Either way, Comstar was going into the battle knowing this would be a meat grinder.
Yeah.
Even with their equipment being close to battle parity, they would be the underdog, and this would be their Alamo. The order of battle for 3052 is well documented. This is the clan drop order for Tukayyid and their objectives. And the battle that unfolded was apocalyptic. The planet-wide battle lasted from the 1st of May to the 20th. For 20 days, the fate of the Inner Sphere was held in the balance as a telecom company fought invaders from beyond the sphere. And how they did it is really something else. Comstar may be a lot of things, crazy, duplicitous, deceptive, all-knowing, quasi-religious fanatics, but they had very little practical experience in warfare. In fact, prior to this point, Comstar more or less had to eliminate problems using the old Soviet method.
Makes sense.
Comstar was, beneath everything else, an information-based organization and drew on history for the direction for this battle. Comstar opted for defense in depth, also known as an elastic defense, also known as a castle defense, or in the modern era as a hippity-hoppity get-off-my-property, and pulled out all stops by using a series of rapid, unending hit-and-run engagements against the invaders. The defense was dependent on hitting the clanners at every opportunity, ambushing them, then retreating, hitting and fading, ambushing them.
This is kind of the strength of guerrilla tactics, that you want to keep the enemy on their toes at all times. This isn't just, physical warfare, but you also have to do the mental warfare to kind of crush their hopes of even, winning. To make them believe that there is no way that they can fight you. Because if they can still believe that they'll be able to defeat you, then they're just gonna come back. And yeah, we most likely know all of the terrain and how we can potentially use that to create ambushes, lay traps, where the enemy army might make pit stops and stuff. If we have all of that figured out, then it's far too easy to make sure that they never get any rest at all.
Them to the breaking point all the while. Clanners had the advantage in mobility and equipment. Double heat sinks negate a lot of heat, so the Inner Sphere had to push them all that much harder. And as soon as the clanners mustered a counterattack, the Inner Sphere would fade away, leading to the next offensive point, and then engage again. So every time the clanners paused to think, they dropped artillery and airstrikes on their head. Every time they paused to survey a path, they were hit by marauding scout vehicles, max VTOLs, aerospace assets, or even more artillery. Sometimes Comstar would let clanner scout vehicles pass the main body, and then snap to ambush the main column advance, cutting scouts off and surprising the hell out of everyone. Prepared defenses allowed Comstar to achieve a spectacular success in defense in depth. All battle preparations were for rapid redeployment of forces, reconsolidation of damaged units, and hardened defensive points to force clanners to battle.
We do have the logistical advantage, which is something that isn't really touched upon in a lot of, stories about war. But we can see clearly that the clans are really, really far into the Inner Sphere. But the further they go in, the more they have to stretch out their resources, right? So while they can't resupply immediately, we already have the home field advantage, and we have plans for them and defensive lines, and probably a ton of people ready to step over the bodies of their comrades in order to hold the line again. So yeah, this makes all too much sense why the clans are going to lose here. Because this is pretty evident that they will.
The ground was prepared in advance for this bloodbath. Every bridge was rigged to blow or set to sabotage.
Traps
concealed bunkers
everywhere
along every attack route provided excellent firing points and served as effective anchors for defense in depth. Entire cities were completely covered into elaborate kill zones. Every access corridor was a trap. Every road was a potential minefield. Every field of planted grain potentially sown with explosives or concealing weapon systems. Clanners had to worry that behind every blade of grass was a rifle barrel, a bayonet, a missile, a tank, an artillery piece, or a mech. Comstar had prepared the planet into an enormous killing field, and when the battle commenced, the comm guards hit them like a vengeful god. And how did the clan manage in the face of all this? Let me tell you a story. When Clan Smoke Jaguar hit the planet, they landed with 2 full galaxies of units. This is the equivalent of...
Did text just say galaxies of units? What is that a measure of, or did I mishear that? How many? I'm not familiar with the BattleTech terminology just yet. Or maybe, as I said, I might have misheard that.
Several brigades of power armor wearing nightmare fuel drinking eugenics-born stormtroopers, psychotic mech pilots devoid of all human emotion but hate and pride, and the leadership needed to drive these tools into the heart of the enemy with zero hesitation. And Comstar completely ruined them by exploiting terrain, prepared defensive positions, and in one spectacular instance, getting them to advance through a seemingly undefended pass, only to spring an ambush and turn it into a shooting gallery. Comstar fighting Smoke Jaguar was like the Harlem Globetrotters versus third graders. When Smoke Jaguar gave up and left the planet with full material losses calculated in, they lost all but 22% of their equipment. 32% of their total committed forces were killed outright. More were horrifically mangled and damaged beyond any use to the clan war machine. The Jaguars had kept fighting, thinking that they had almost annihilated their enemies, because who could stand against them? They were Smoke Jaguar. They were goaded into yet one more attack, one more stand, one more battle, over and over and over again, because they believed they were on the verge of victory. And every
there it is. That belief, that confidence. The moment you believe you've won is the moment that you're the most weakest. And Comstar took that and used it against them spectacularly here.
Time Comstar would hit them all the harder. Smoke Jaguar could not conceive of an enemy that could stand up to their might. Well, Comstar did. And succeeded.
And they prepared
and they
for
didn't
it.
Stop there. When Clan Novacat decided to land troops and equipment using a spectacular demonstration of the incredibly effective hover drop maneuver, showing off their elite skill before their enemies on the field of battle, Comstar decided enough was enough and ruined their air show. How? Comstar blitzed aerospace assets in, attacked and kamikazed the drop ships. In an instant, Novacat lost Alpha Galaxy's command ship, and the rest were immediately grounded. In this confusion, Comstar gained air superiority, and guess how that went? They turned the landing zone into a turkey shoot. After the comm guards easily managed to maintain air superiority over the drop zones and shot the living bejesus out of the clanners as they tried to forge a beachhead, leaving the Novacats in short supply with extreme difficulties in maintaining any effective communication, command, and control. As it turns out, it's hard to do any of the above while getting your ass handed to you by crazy people. The comm guards then launched an all-out kamikaze attack while the Novacats were busy trying to capture Comstar Depot. Why? They were out of supplies. At a tremendous loss, Novacat was pushed off the planet. Why? Comstar threw everything they had at them while they had their backs turned. Of their invasion force, 3 Novacat stars survived. That's 15 mechs out of an invasion force. It was a near total wipe, and that's not the worst beating that was delivered. When Clan Diamond Shark landed, they had an army. When they left, it was gone. A memory, an entire invasion force relegated to the past tense. Later, when Steel Viper landed, they were goaded by Comstar into continuing their attack to such a point that they ran out of ammunition, until they ran into the 321st and 401st comm guards, who had plenty, and decided to share it with them at gunpoint. Steel Viper lost so hard that...
Oh man, the comm guards are such nice people, sharing their ammunition with the enemy. It's just never ending, man. Like, I guess the clans didn't really talk with each other after their massive defeat here. That, you know, hey bro, watch out, that battlefield ain't normal, man. The enemy soldiers are all crazy too. But like, it should have been expected. But I also kind of understand that, you know, maybe they didn't know that history. And I mean, we did make it a point to say that Comstar took lessons from history in order to set up this battlefield. So just that information alone gave them a massive advantage.
Their Khan resigned, and on and on and on it went. Every time a clanner commander tried to back down, a Comstar commander would issue a challenge to get them to do stupid things. Then Comstar would be waiting there with enough forces to jump on them like amphetamine-soaked circus monkeys. The clanners were unprepared for a war like this. This was not a war they had ever fought before. And thanks to Comstar's success, it was not a war they would ever fight again.
Yeah.
Comstar didn't falter. They knew the cost of this. They bulldozed.
But yeah, I mean, if they had never fought an enemy who fought like this, then yeah, it just makes all too much sense. Because this probably confirms that every previous engagement with the Inner Sphere was like a one-on-one battle, head-to-head. And then all of a sudden the tactics changed right here and right now. You wouldn't expect that.
Those the corpses of their fallen comrades out of the way and kept attacking. When a Clanner unit was spotted, something was flying at it. Artillery, rockets, missiles, aerospace assets, VTOLs, tanks, infantry, whatever was at hand was put on that problem until it stopped. Comstar ground its own forces down on the clans, knowing that no matter how fancy their crap was, you could still die if you tried hard enough. And in the end, the clans lost. Only Clan Wolf managed to achieve its stated objectives. Ghost Bear and Jade Falcon took a draw. Every single other clan flatly lost. And not just lost. Some were eradicated in all but name. By guess, it's roughly estimated that clanners lost 40% of their committed fighting forces, and many more were horribly damaged. This would be bad enough for any army, considering that it would take them out of the fight for years even if their resupply and supporting logistics were on the front lines with them.
Yeah.
Which they weren't. They were all the way back in clanner space. But this is one step worse. This isn't just clanner rank and file, this is the best they fucking had. They had brought out their very best with their most promising commanders, only to be utterly annihilated. They lost more than they could ever hope to replace in such a short time. They lost irreplaceable weapons, manpower, entire generations of their finest, to include 2 Khans on the field of battle. The Green Comm Guards managed to grind the clan war machine to a damn halt by throwing their bodies into the fray and fighting until they died screaming. Every time a Comm Guard was gunned down, another stepped up to take their place. Mech after mech, tank after tank, infantryman after infantryman. From PPC to bayonet, Comstar fought them and died for every inch of soil. Needless to say, Comstar's losses were beyond count. As it turns out, if you fight a war like Zukov, you're going to lose a few people. This defeat changed the clans. It rocked them. It upset their way of everything.
I can imagine. With how monumental those losses are, like, he didn't just lose a bunch of mechs. Losing entire generations of promising commanders and soldiers, it's going to take a lot of time to rebuild that up. If the Inner Sphere is going to even let you do that, right? After basically losing your entire military force.
Changed their culture. Some clans changed the way they viewed the Inner Sphere and became wardens instead of crusaders. Some clans had lost their entire command and control on the fields of battle. Some lost all of their functional equipment in the invasion corridor, removing them as a power for years to come. Some had lost every great warrior and every promising warrior for a generation. Clans like Steel Viper would make themselves feel better by deciding to crusade against the Jade Falcons and, well, sorting things out through hurt feelings. Clans like Diamond Shark would find themselves suddenly in a better place as their warrior caste more or less disappeared overnight, only to be replaced by a very forward-thinking, friendly, and diplomatic merchant caste. Some clans would look at the Inner Sphere in silent awe, wondering why this had happened in the first place. They were confused. What had they gained? Why did they fight this way? Their opponent had invited them to fight, and it was a fight they foolishly underbid and lost because their honor demanded it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, if I had to take a step back and be like, think from the perspective of somebody who grew up in such a society, such a culture, then yeah, I can understand all the mistakes that were made along the way. And the complete and utter, like, bewilderment, the fact that we had lost such an easy battle against the Inner Sphere. But with this kind of crushing defeat, I doubt a battle like this has ever happened again against the clans. Not because, like, you know, they're never able to regain any of the resources that they previously once had, Well, actually, maybe it is that, but also like hopefully none of them will ever underestimate the inner sphere ever again like this, or really any other enemy they have to fight.
It was a fight they lost because honor was more important than strategic vision. And sadly, it was a battle they lost to a glorified, self-important, fanatical telecommunications company. And this victory was everything to the inner sphere.
Man.
Mostly it gave a sense of unity to the inner sphere, for a time anyways. They'll later undo this in record time. However, on the technical side, the scrap and salvage recovery would bolster engineering, research, and design efforts in the inner sphere for years to come.
Oh, yeah.
And now,
that's another part that I didn't think about. That, like, you know, all the technology and stuff that they have, which is much more advanced, they would get destroyed, but it would also have to be left there because they would have to retreat from the planet. And so we could just salvage all of that, learn all of their secrets, use it for ourselves, maybe make it even better. So that technological advantage that the clans had is just now gone.
The opinion of an asshole. Why the clan lost wasn't purely for honor's sake, though. That played a part. A crap culture plus a crap value system equals crap battle theory. However, the clanners weren't only undone by their cultural ideology, they were undone by an asshole exploiting it. Remember Vogt?
This guy.
Anastasius Vogt, the bureaucrat general playing war? Turns out he wasn't a bureaucrat, and truth be told, that wasn't even his real name. He was born Frederick Steiner. He was at one point the scion of House Steiner. He was a hero and a mad bastard. He was an accomplished leader and commander of men, and not without a dark side. His dangerous path through life led him to take a new name and become reborn as Anastasius Vogt after burning his bridges as a Steiner royal. He was handed over to Comstar, and with his new name came new duties. Through Comstar, he became a defender of the inner sphere, a commander of men again. He was a phenomenal military mind before his rebirth, and was at core a soldier and little else. With the resources of Comstar and their omnipresent intelligence operations, he was the perfect man to win at Tukayyid. He knew that to defeat an enemy, you had to overpower them, outsmart them, and in the end, crush them.
Exactly.
He was so driven to flatly destroy enemies that all of his opponents throughout his life considered him to be completely incapable of subtlety. He was more than ready to throw bodies at a problem until the problem went away. He knew the enemy could not replace losses too easily, and clearly saw the means to cripple the clan war machine. As a man, he hated politics, he hated social courtesy, he hated protocol, he hated honor and bowing. He only liked war. And the clanners made the worst mistake possible you can make when looking at an opponent. They dismissed him as a joke and failed to respect him, and for that...
Yeah, there it is. For this kind of battle, you certainly need a man like this to be in charge. You have to use every single thing that you have, even be willing to throw away all of those lives in order to achieve victory. Because if you don't, then the entire inner sphere falls.
And he fucking broke them. For the end, I'll turn to a quote from the man himself. Wars are not won on the field of combat. Battles are. But those are only ever part of the story. To win a war, you need to break the enemy's resolve, to force him to accept defeat.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the war will never end. Too many conflicts persist because battles are won, but the hearts and minds of the people are not. Winning involves every level of society. From the generals and the politicians to the shopgirls and the street cleaners. The infantryman with his rifle may be the blunt weapon used to win this fight, but he is neither the instigator nor the concluder. TLDR, the clans brought their best. And Space AT&T said, "Get bent, weirdo." Next time, though, we'll get back to what I promised, a space story. Catch fuck off with the laser pointer.
It's a laser sight. These future guns kick ass.
I don't care. You could put someone's eye out.
Okay, fine.
Oh, well, there you go.
It turns out that's not a safety. The more you know.
God damn it,
the more
Catch.
you know.
Oh, give me a locust.
What's the song? Getting paid in bacon is pretty good, not gonna lie. Could you feed a mining? Excuse me? What does he roll exactly? Alright, I probably cut out most of that song. It was a great song, but I didn't have really much else to say. I was just kind of vibing with it, so if you guys want to hear it, make sure to go check out the OG. But yeah, man, that was brutal. Now I can kind of understand why you have to respect Comstar, yeah? They literally like turned back an entire barbarian invasion by utilizing their weakness to the utmost extent, completely crushing their will to battle and changing their culture as a whole. That is one heck of a crushing defeat, and I think it would be cool to see all of that animated. I don't think it is though, judging from the images that were shown here. To the extent it might be shown as just like comic book pages or whatever, talking about certain battles that happened during it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.